to show you how to join onto that Tunisian project. So what we want to do is flip our project so we can see that first foundation row that we're going to be joining onto. So as you can see, this is our first row. So whenever you see the first square, because Tunisian simple stitch makes like little squares, so the first square or this stitch is going to be our first row, of course, but we're going to be joining onto that bottom stitch to make our foundation. So we're going to grab our hook, and as I told you before, we're not going to be joining onto that one, but onto that first very little stitch. So we're gonna grab our hook, and with a little finesse and wiggling around, we're going to insert our hook, and then we're going to grab our whichever color we're going to be using. In this case, I'm going to be using black because I'm gonna do the inverse of my first square. So instead of doing white, I'm going to be using black, and we're going to join using a slip stitch. So we just yarn over and pull, and then we do one. That's going to be our first stitch or our first foundation stitch. And my pattern, the pattern that I'm using, going to always leave it down below in the description, calls for 16 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, all the way. So now that we have all of our foundation stitches, we're going to be working onto that back bump of our chain. So always this one counts as 1, and we yarn over and pull and counts as 2, and then we do it all the way down, and then I'll meet you back here so we can join our row onto that second project. And for our last stitch, we're going to be using that back bump of that first slip stitch, and that will count as 16. But instead, we usually, what we do in our simple Tunisian crochet is that we would yarn over and pull one, and then we will continue with our row. But instead of doing that, let me undo that one stitch. Instead of doing that, we're going to be joining onto that project. So as you can see, we have that one stitch or that one B of our next row or first row, and we are going to join, or we're going to insert our hook onto that first and back. Let me show you a little bit better. We join onto that first, only the back one, the back loop, and onto that loop right there, so we can anchor our project. And instead of chaining one, what we would usually do, we're going to pull through 2. We're gonna go straight into pulling 2 onto that project, and as you can see, it will start to create that square, that iconic square of that Tunisian crochet would usually create. And we would continue with pulling 2 all the way down our row. My next row calls for a color change. So right now, and if you want to follow a full tutorial, I do have how to make the first rows of our Ying and Yang paw on my YouTube, so I'm gonna leave it down below in case you're interested. But as of right now, I'm just going to follow my pattern and kind of show you guys how I make my color changes. And like we've seen before, we're going to join onto that one loop and into the back. So those two, we pull, and then we go straight on to pulling 2 stitches of our project. And as you can see, you will start to create those squares. And yeah, I'll leave you with a time lapse of how I join my 2 projects as I create them simultaneously.